Welcome, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing this little baby, and this is the Cold Steel SRK Compact. I've been looking at these for a while, and if you're a regular viewer you know I'm a Cold Steel fan. My two production companies of choice are Cold Steel and Falconriven, and I really like Cold Steel and Falconriven. They've got their failings, mine, but Cold Steel, for the money, they're good knives. The SRK, which I've reviewed before, highly rate that, and I've got one in San Mai, and it's just a great knife. For what you pay for it, it's just a cracker. Now, I ordered this, and I expected this to turn up with a full-size handle. I thought this had the same size handle as regular Cold Steel, but with a shorter blade. So somewhere in between the SRK and the Master Hunter. Well, unfortunately it turned up with a smaller, skinnier handle. Lengthwise it's fine, but it's a little bit on the thin side, so I was disappointed. Bear in mind I hadn't watched anybody else's reviews on it, not lately anyway, so whether it had slipped my mind, probably had. I've watched a few reviews on it, and in two of them the tip snapped. Now, I'm not one for sticking a knife in a piece of wood and prizing it up, because to be honest with you, I can't see me ever doing that in the woods. At the end of the day, knives are used in the woods. Yes, I know there's the survival knife thing about it, and prizing nails out and all that kind of stuff, but it's not something I do. So I can't see me breaking this tip off by just battening it. I don't think that's going to happen. If it does happen, I'll be extremely disappointed. It's got a coating. I don't like coatings. But for the price on this, and apparently this SK5 steel is very prone to corrosion, so that's why they cover it. Don't like coatings. Can't like the ferro rod on it. Obviously I could take the paint off, but I'm not going to bother. So my tests, normal thing. I'm going to process wood to light a fire with it. It's not going to be very good at chopping, it's a bit light. So my other Cold Steel SRK is a hollow grind. I'm not a fan of hollow grinds, but it held up really well, so no complaints. This has got a sabre grind. I know some people call it a flat grind, but that's a sabre grind, just for the record. Sheath. Secure X plastic sheath, which I dropped on the floor. Chances are, if you're watching this, you've probably watched another review on it. Does what it says on the tin. Nothing wrong with them. A lot of people don't like the plastic, but for what you're paying for this, it's a fantastic sheath, that's all I can say. Right, on to some testing. Too easy, far too easy. Now gravity and brute force play their part. As I've mentioned before, not a lot of point chopping all the way through. Fair play, nothing wrong with this thing. See how good it is at making shavings. That is the factory edge. It wasn't shaving when I got it, mind you. Well, it's shaving, but it could be sharper. Couple more of them and I'm sure I could light that with a ferro rod. Unfortunately, with the paint on it, can't use it as a scraper. Well, not bad in more of a comfortable position. I never like making my feather sticks, point them into the log. I just don't like doing it that way. I'd rather sit down and do it. So that's an improvement, but it's definitely dull. You know, I can run my thumb on that. Granted, I have got hard skin, but that is a bit dull. But these are so easy to sharpen. A sabre grind with a secondary bevel is an absolute doddle to sharpen. I'll try now in the log method. Should light the ferro rod. Now I'm sitting comfortably. I've split a few nice straighter sticks. I'm going to attempt some decent feather sticks with this thing. Then I'm going to do a few fine cuts as well. Well, that's not bad considering it's pretty blunt. I do find when I'm using it, it's jumping a little bit, and that's because it's lost its edge. But they are pretty fine, and that would go up with a ferro rod, no problem at all. But, as I said earlier, that spine is no good for it. It's just rounded and covered in paint, so not something I'm going to light a ferro rod with. But the grind on it is good. The angle of the grind is definitely good for making shavings. I think I'll give it a tickle on the DC4. I forgot to press record, and I've been cutting a pot hanger notch in here. Sorry folks. But what I'm finding, it's making quite hard work of it. Well, it did it just fine, but I think it needs a good sharpening on a proper stone. Definitely. I don't think that DC4 did much at all. Yeah, it gave it a bit of bite, and that's about it. The paint, that's definitely a contributing factor. It's not cutting as well as a polished blade would. But it did it. Perhaps it took a little bit longer. What you got to realise is, the more force you put into a cut, the more dangerous it is, the more chance of slipping. So a razor sharp edge and a polished edge will always be safer to use than something dull with paint on it. But it did it, and that's the main thing. Right, so my final thoughts on this knife. It's well worth the money, but to me it's a little beater. It hasn't got that finesse of a Scandi, something with a nice polished blade. It's never going to cut as well, but it went through that log. It went through that log crossways and vertically, and it didn't chip. I didn't break the tip off it, and I was hitting it pretty hard with a baton, so it's a tough little knife. It's definitely worth the £45, or I think same in dollars. It's definitely worth that money. I would probably carry this with a stone and a lighter instead of usually a strop and a ferro rod. It's more of a survival type knife. Will do bushcraft duties, but if you want it for that, I would suggest taking the paint off, giving it a really good sharpen and squaring the spine, and then it'll definitely do the job far better. But I like that knife, and by the way, nobody sent it to me, I paid for it. That's my opinion on this knife. Put a sharpening stone and a lighter on the sheath and you've got a cracking little survival package. Personally, if this had the bigger handle of the original SRK, the thickness of the original SRK, a polished CPM3 blade, it would be an absolute cracker. So Cold Steel, if you're watching this, you probably aren't, that's my opinion. Big handle, polished CPM3 blade with a sharp spine, and get rid of that swedge or false edge, whatever they call it, and just have that flat, and then you probably won't have the breaky tip problem, and that would be a really good small survival knife. In fact, if you made that, that would be a far better knife than the Falcon F1 and S1. Oh yeah, and keep the sabre grind. There we are. That's my review on the Cold Steel SRKC. Granted, I could have done a bit more work with it, but I think I covered all the bases there. Good little knife. Thank you very much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up, I greatly appreciate it, and any views and comments, I like them too. Till the next time, goodbye. with the blade. So again, should like the ferro rod. Let's try it.